in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to the KD Ratio Podcast. Your host tonight is myself, William, and I am joined by
Dylan
And Kyle.
Kyle is remote, but we got the full crew back.
We do.
Boys, how we doing?
Doing great.
Yeah, Kyle?
Oh, just the best.
Oh, splendid. Well, let's jump right into some topics then.
Good.
I think, Kyle, I know we had a whole episode about Diablo 4, and I know Dylan and I are excited about it, but I think, have we gotten you a little hyped for it? I know you said you've played a lot of Diablo 3. Does the combat and gameplay, I think, is a lot different than D3 to D4, but curious as to your thoughts.
Everything I'm looking into, I didn't play the beta because it was not on my radar at all. Like, I didn't even know you guys were hyped for it until I listened to the episode, and I was like, "What the hell? This is a thing that we're into?" Like,
Yeah.
I guess we are now. So
I was the only one that played
Diablo
the beta.
3. I played it for not like, I mean, maybe like 30 hours. So nothing compared to, like, what a true fan would have put into it. But I remember thinking it was a lot of fun, and this one looks fun too. It looks like it'd be good times for sure.
So what's going to be your starter class? So I'm definitely going sorcerer. From all the builds that I've explored online and seen, sorcerer is definitely my play style, and I love the mechanics of some of the spells. And so what are you guys going to probably roll as at least your starter class?
I'll let you go first, Kyle.
Definitely barbarian, just because that's closest in line with the type of character I like to play. Anytime I play like a game of this nature, I just like being that upfront, in your face action kind of guy. Maybe a tank of some sort, but I just like melee combat the best.
Yeah, Dylan.
I played all the classes except for Necromancer in the beta, and I'll probably end up being Rogue to level us out on our team. But I think if they add any classes, I would probably switch to one of them, just because I wasn't a big fan of these ones. I had fun with them. I had a lot of fun with Barbarian. I had some fun with Sorcerer. Druid was kind of underwhelming just because I feel like maybe they needed to adjust some of the damage outputs on it or do something with it. But like in Diablo 3, I played probably less than you, Kyle, but I had a ton of fun being the monk. And I was sad to see he's not in this one. So I would choose the monk. I'll be a rogue.
I think probably Druid is going to be that support class. Or
Monk wasn't really support in Diablo. He was combat. He'd run up and he'd punch people.
So, because this game, like with these action RPGs, like it's more about like self-sustain than falling more into the Holy Trinity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been playing Path of Exile. I haven't put too much time into it, but I've done some research online of like how to play the game and jumped in, and I've been enjoying the game thoroughly. It has been pretty intense from a learning curve perspective, because there was some systems that, like you have to take out this initial like enemy, and then you can loot up like the additional wand, and then you can like put a sigil in it, and then you kind of start progressing through there. And I had, because of my experience with like MMOs and stuff and really intricate systems, it kind of clicked for me really easily. But I could see how this was your first video game ever. No way, dude. It would be a nightmare to try and figure out. But I've been doing some quests and going along, and I didn't think I would like the point and click style of movement, which is in D4. Like, me playing this game is only to prep for D4. Because I think it's pretty much the closest thing to that game. And I think that's what Blizzard's probably trying to. I don't think it's going to kill Path of Exile. I mean, everyone likes to bring out those terms like, oh, it's the PoE killer. Because Path of Exile is a hugely popular game.
They've always kind of coexisted.
Yeah, but it's
Diablo has its own market.
Yeah, but I think the style that D4 is different enough to where they're probably going to try and pull some of that player base. Because from what I understand is, like, Path of Exile, I think they just had a new expansion launch or something, some big patch update. They just hit their all-time high on Steam.
Wow.
Like 200,000 plus concurrent players. And so like it is a widely popular game, and I can see why. Like the combat looks fun. I watched some streams of like end game content. It looks like a good time. You feel it definitely pays off. You feel powerful, but the skill tree, I'm taking baby steps into that thing. That is a beast in and of itself to see that, to witness that. But the point and click aspect of it, it is not like a lazy sit back and enjoy it style of game. It is an active game that you have to be ready for. And I find that to be pretty fun when you're in the right mindset. And because like I figured out the combat, at least for where I'm at right now, pretty quickly. Because there was this one boss that basically had two moves. I don't know if it's a boss. It was like a elevated monster. He had a lot of health and he was kind of tough to kill. He had like this rain fire skill, and then he had like this teleport, and then drops like a burning ash at your feet that like nukes your health down. And each one does a ton of damage. And so I found like I would cast a spell, sidestep, cast a spell, sidestep, and it was just like this rotation that I could get into, and I was basically able to outmaneuver all of his attacks. And so it felt like super rewarding to be able to do that because I was, outthinking the AI, right, in terms of how to move and cast and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And I'm it just gets me more and more hyped for Diablo 4. I am a veteran on that subreddit now. I'm just like reading all the content.
If they were to update it to WASD on Diablo 4, would you switch
To
from point and click?
Yes. Just because so you're saying like to move up and down, left and right using WASD. So I would, simply because I have an MMO style mouse that has the 18 buttons or whatever it is on the side of it, on the left side of it. And so I have enough key bindings to be able to fly through my skills or whatever action items that I need to use at that time. That I like to keep my actions and my aim in my one hand and then my movement in my left hand. That's how I always balance games no matter what. Like my left hand is dedicated to movement, whether it's jumping, mantling over something, sprinting. I like to keep that hand dedicated for that. So I can always, at any time, I can move anywhere. I don't have a hand, because generally if you have like a key binding like set to 1 or something on a keyboard, you have to sacrifice like your finger that was on S or whatever, or A. You have to sacrifice that for a split second to press the 1, right? And so then you can't, in that moment, you're not able to make a left turn if you needed to readjust. With the MMO style mouse, I have all those buttons quickly accessible to me, and then I regularly fill those up, and then I use a shift modifier too, to where if I press shift, then all 12 or 16 of those buttons change again. So that alone is more than enough key bindings, and I'm very comfortable at this point in my life of being able to manage all that and fly around on that. So that's sort of how I've always been. But the point and click, I don't know. I want to get in and play the combat. I didn't get a chance to play the beta, but I want to play it and see how it is. I've seen that there is a way to maybe mod it, but I don't want to immediately just go and mod the fuck out of this game, right?
Yeah. What do you think, Kyle? Would that be a no-go if it was point and click? For me, it would. I do not like point and click games.
I don't mind point and click so much. My problem is it's not turn based. Point and click,
yeah.
I feel like point and click only works for me if it's turn based combat, like Divinity or other games, that I've played. Because I'm not good enough at point and click to be in it, while it's happening, and then also still worrying about movement. I'm just so in tune to either WASD or on a controller. So I definitely feel like if I was playing on PC, I'd hook up a controller, which is, I know, is not like the way people
No,
who
I mean,
like to play
I
this
think,
game, but
yeah, I don't know. It's probably like the Diablo community probably doesn't mainly play it on controller, but from what I've been reading of like it's D3 was really well optimized on a controller, and I think a lot of people are probably going to bring that into Diablo 4, play around with it. But man, I'm really the it just looks like a lot of fun with some of the world bosses. They look like they have sort of, they remind me of strike missions from Guild Wars 2, but basically like you have a small team that like in the open world, strike missions aren't are as in instance combat in Guild Wars 2, but this is open world, so it'll be interesting to see how that really sort of plays out. But all of a sudden you're doing like a world boss that looks to bring a pretty significant amount of challenge. Some of the mechanics, it look like, wow, this is a beautiful, well-designed game and well-designed boss. And Dylan, you were talking earlier before we jumped on about some of the content that Blizzard is committed to like bringing within the first year of the release.
Yeah, so
of
they
this.
said they released recently that they said they were going to do 4 seasons within the first year. What those seasons are, I'm not exactly sure, but content roll arounds and stuff like that. But so it sounds like they're going to be pretty consistent in updating it. Looking at Diablo Immortal, they last August announced that Diablo Immortal was going to be updated every 2 weeks.
Whew.
So I don't know if they'll have the same approach here with Diablo 4. Maybe not, since it's not a mobile live service game, but Blizzard's pretty good with their upkeep on games like Overwatch and stuff.
It's going to
they
be
are.
interesting to
They're
see.
dedicated to their communities for sure.
Are you going to get the which version if you get this, Kyle? Are you going to get you going to do the 4-day early version where you pay an extra $20 and get a bunch of the stuff?
Probably not. Well, I don't know.
You're doing the
if
100
you
version.
if you guys both do that, then I'm gonna feel like I'm missing out if I don't. You know what I mean?
So we
that's
bully him
enough for
into
me
it, Billy.
Got it. Because I think it comes out at 4 p.m. Pacific time
What a weird time.
on a Thursday. No, on a Wednesday, maybe Thursday. I think Thursday. It releases on Pacific because it releases at midnight for the UK, which is, I
Oh.
guess, what they. I don't know if that's like the UTC standard, times. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, but and I think that's like 4 p.m. Pacific, which is where we're at. So, that would, I think I would want to do like seriously a solid 8 hours that first day. Take maybe that Friday off of work, and then hit it all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and just have a lot of fun with it. I don't think the PvP side of the game launches right away in terms of like the actual like leaderboards or challenges. I think that season starts like a few weeks after launch. So basically we can just spend our time focusing on getting geared up and maxed out, and then we can have fun with the other
Get ready
game
to
modes.
end game.
Yeah. They did a whole tutorial of like what the end game is going to look like.
I saw that. I didn't get a chance to watch it. It looked like it was for the Necromancer.
I watched it, but at this point I've seen so much other Diablo content that I don't really remember what was brought up, but basically they talked about all the different versions of like dungeon combat and like how world instances work and how PvP is expected to play out and what all people can achieve. It's kind of amazing to see how like the different genres have evolved over time, because this to me is basically an MMO, but because like everything almost could be classified as an MMO like these days, and if it's an online like open world system essentially, because technology is just advanced where it can throw it into a game and it's not that big of a deal, right? But it's still like an action RPG first and foremost, and I don't know if the auction house or the trading post or whatever you want to call it is going to be like in full swing, or if they even have that ability. I haven't seen too much about it. I'm sure they have something like that. But yeah, I like the inventory management system looks to be way more cleaned up than than Path of Exile. Path of Exile is a little more clunky, but I'm excited, dude. Like, I really feel like this is going to be a game that I get into. I just hope the launch is clean, knock on wood, and that we could play it. But it sounds like the beta, for the most part, people had decent experience, and Blizzard did a good job, I think, of giving themselves enough time to correct the feedback that came from the beta.
Yeah, the how it was is the 2 early days. There was early access beta, if you already had the game pre-ordered, and those days I heard were rough. With trying to log in, it sounded like there was long queue times, and then it would crash. But when I got access to the beta, which was the regular free beta, it didn't crash at all on me. I I didn't have any issues. I ran into one point where um, I was running and I got like stuck in an area, but I just fast traveled to back and I was able to walk past it again. It did time out, but I mean, of course, it timed out. It's a server, and I was just, I was like off not playing the game.
Yeah, I saw a couple of people crash when they try to like accept a quest reward or a quest dialogue or something like that, and all that stuff they're gonna have worked out,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it's gonna launch with some bugs. I mean, but what I hope it doesn't launch with, I think New World launched with this, the game is it had like economy bugs,
Oh,
and when you have that, I think New World did a few resets where they had to roll back stuff, and that always sucks for players because they can lose experience, they lose
whatever.
whatever they accomplished, or maybe there's like a hard reset financially or whatever. That can be annoying, and I really hope there's no damages. I think Blizzard's at a point though where they've, especially with Diablo, right, that they probably have figured out how to limit a lot of that
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
But you never know. There might be some trade that you could do that just sort of breaks the economy of the game.
If we find that, we got to do it before it's patched.
Well, no, like they will just they'll roll back the full server to like
I
a
don't
previous
think
save state. I've seen
Diablo
that
would-
happen.
Mm.
I've seen that happen. I don't know
Do you think they would do that with? I don't think with Diablo myself.
if it was bad enough. Sure, absolutely they would.
Hmm.
If it crippled the game like into permanency, like now here's the thing. I don't know. Maybe you guys can answer this because you played a decent amount of Diablo 3. Like in terms of money, like you earn billions of gold, right? Like you have so much cash.
I don't know. Talk about Diablo 3, Kyle.
Well, I mean, not billions, and also keep in mind, I've only put like 30 hours into it, but I mean, it does get a little crazy with the amount of money that you can
Yeah,
that you can get.
I can confirm in the beta I had more money than I was using.
Yeah.
Just because, at least for early game, I feel like, and this is just my play style. I know some people are different, but I prefer not to upgrade any material or loot item until I'm like almost close to max level, because I think it's a waste, because I'm just gonna find better loot anyways. So I didn't upgrade anything, and I was just having fun, and I had more money than I knew what to do with.
Yeah, well, because I've seen a lot of people complaining about the cost to respec, and they're saying that scales, and so people are like sort of putting pen to paper and going, well, it's going to cost, some like 18 million coins or whatever to respec, and my opinion is, well, that's all relative, right? Like, yeah, 18 million in a game like Guild Wars or whatever, where having 100 gold is a decent amount of cash to be able to buy like whatever build you want or whatever gear you want. But like if it's like I play for a few days and I have 1 billion gold, or then it's 18 million gold is not that big of a deal. It's just a way for there to be a gold sink in the game to take money out. It's a passive way to remove money from the game.
And at that point, if you're gonna respec that far into the game, that seems like a really big decision, because if it scales, I think, with how much your level is. So if you're gonna respec at that point where it's 18 million, you're gonna have to spend a good like 20 minutes probably going through selecting your abilities and items, and so.
Well, what I would like is I'm a guy that likes to min max, so like if I could partially respec or something to where if I knew I was going into a combat situation that required more CC, or I needed extra defenses for something, or I didn't need any defenses. I just need as much DPS as I could get so that we could burst down, one boss before he gets to some segment in his rotation and hurts us all. Whatever the situation might call for, that's one thing that I really like about some games is you being able to change that on the fly, because that takes your knowledge of like the game, like the skill cap, way high. Because if you're doing that and you're providing that support of those changes to your team and you're maximizing these instances, they pay off big time.
I wonder if they'd ever add that, like
I
a
don't know.
loadout type system.
Because how do the skills work? The skills are tied to the weapon type, or the skills are tied to like what your build is?
What your build is.
Yeah.
So like, just to give the example of the rogue, the 4 basic skills that you very first get to choose from are 2 dagger, 2 bow. And then, you choose one of those and then you move on to the next, and it pretty much follows that formula for everything. It's 2 of this, 2 of that. For sorcerer, it's like, 2 lightning, or there's a lot more variety in the sorcerer one. That's like lightning, wind, fire, water, and so you get to choose one of those main abilities. So it's more just tied to what you want to develop your class into than items.
Yeah.
But there are certain items that synchronize with certain abilities. So, but you wouldn't know until you get the item.
Yeah. See, because I'm just thinking for like the 4-man content, like, am I just built one way and that's how I'm always ever going to play? Or, if we could play off or synergize our builds together where it's like, oh, I know you provide, chilling damage, or I'm just, making shit up, like chilling damage, and that synergizes as well with like, vulnerability or something like that, or weakness, and I could spec for that to where we play off of each other's debuffs.
You can do like
and
combos
strengths.
and stuff. Yeah.
And that's like when I hear that they're doing like 4-man content stuff, like I like that idea of being able to synergize stuff, but I don't know how. I didn't really see all the stuff that I watched. Is a lot of people just doing everything solo. I didn't really see. I don't even know if you could party up in the beta. I'm not sure if that was even an option.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was it any of the dungeons even available?
I did a small, like,
mini
dungeon, and it was like one of the optional, I think, just they rotate dungeons out in the open world. And what it was is you had a side objective in the dungeon, and then besides the dungeon itself, so you had like, I think it said kill these certain type of kill 5 of these certain type of enemies, and they were really tough. And then if I did that, I got the best loot from that dungeon versus just killing enemies. But like I said, I think that was like an optional instanced dungeon that was almost more just to create something to do rather than one of their handcrafted, expansive dungeons that they're famous for.
Do you think that the instance just scales then if you add more players to it?
Probably.
Is that the idea?
Probably scales in difficulty. See that.
Well, it'd also be interesting. Like, I'm really intrigued by the idea of like the different difficulty modes, right? And being able to like move
World
up and
tier.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's not. I've never experienced it in this manner. I've seen like where there's challenge modes that you can activate to make the content harder and stuff, and thus your rewards are better. But the way that this system's implemented, like I really like how there's all the different tiers. It reminds me of like WoW rating, where you have like Mythic and all the different tiers that like can tease you. You can go in and like learn how to play raids, and then you can play stuff that's like really, really, really tough, or you can get into like shit that's just like pure rage insanity that requires like 40 highly skilled players to.
Well, and that's the cool thing
grind
too,
out.
is when you move between those levels, I'm pretty sure it updates your lobby. So if you're at the highest level, you're going to be in a lobby with the people who are playing that. You're not going to be with the people who are playing level 0.
Right.
So that's going to be nice.
Yeah, no. Yeah, definitely. Like if we move up a tier, what'd you call them?
World tiers?
levels? Yeah, world tiers. World tiers. Jesus.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't if I was in hardcore. What is the high one? Is it Nightmare or something? Or
I don't know. It was blocked off.
yeah, I don't remember. I don't know what it's called either. But let's say it's hardcore or whatever. Then that would require you to be in there as well for me to party up with you and play that. Because I would imagine the whole content would be totally different. I mean, it's gonna be the same gist, but like the maybe the number of enemies, the difficulty of enemies, enemy types, all of that stuff is just gonna go through the roof.
So there are 5 Diablo 4 world tiers: Adventure, which is world tier 1, Veteran 2, Nightmare 3, Torment 4, and then just 5.
So no one knows.
5, yeah, doesn't have a name besides just 5.
And from what I understand, like the skill jump from each tier is significant.
Yeah, so I didn't know this. So only once you get to level 50 do tier 3, 4, and 5 become available.
Good. That way you can't just like. That's probably good for the launch of the game. Maybe they remove that later on, but so people can level faster if they get like really really good at the game or whatever. But that's good, so people don't try and like push it and find some gimmicky way to try and level up faster. I like that.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. What do you think we're gonna do? I would recommend we do World Tier 2.
Yeah, I'm down for whatever. I don't know what.
Which is Veteran. In the beta, that's the one I played.
And that's how you that one has a good pacing to like leveling up, right?
That one, what it recommends, that's basically normal difficulty.
Okay.
If you look at it from like a traditional game difficulty level. When you're reading the description, it says if you've played Diablo before, this is the difficulty for you. But I played it, and I honestly think it was personally a better experience than playing on World Tier 1. I would recommend anybody who's going to play it on World Tier 2, just because how fast my character was leveling up was very satisfying compared to the difficulty increase. Wasn't that much harder, because it just forced me to, I couldn't spend skill points willy-nilly. And not even that, I didn't even have to think too hard about what skill points I was building into, but I would recommend going into World Tier 2 just because you'll get a lot more bang for your buck, at least in the early game, and probably late game too, because it's an increase in experience points and gold earned.
Yeah, I love that. Man, I can't wait to get. It's gonna be interesting to see, like, because you could take your character up or down like on a whim, right? Doesn't seem like.
Yeah, you can just go to. There's this. I don't know if in the pause menu if there's an option, but you can go to this fountain in the main town, and you just change it right there.
Love it, man. It's gonna be a good time. So, you've been playing a lot of Destiny lately. You've been raiding in there. What's going on in that game?
It's actually so. I think it's starting to scratch at the feet of greatness.
Ooh,
I don't know. I feel like they're starting to really
I like it.
And
hone in on their game.
I hate that it's taken so long, and that I have, it's like
How long has it been? Like 10 years, right?
10 years.
That's crazy.
But I do feel like they're finally. I do think they did have a good rotation, and I feel like it was a good game. Destiny 1 was a good game. Destiny 2 is a good game, but I feel like they're getting better, and they're honing in on what people are really enjoying about it. Because first off, the new subclass they added, I know it's kind of torn on how it's added, but to me, I love it. I love what it does for the game.
What's the subclass?
It's called Strand. It's based on paracausal strings. It's this weird, I don't know.
Okay.
It's Destiny space magic. But what it adds is it allows your class to grapple, and then it adds these little, they're called tangles. So if I defeat an enemy with Strand, the first enemy I defeat with an ability drops a tangle, which is this little ball. It's a green ball. Anybody can see it. Any of my teammates. You can either grab it and throw it, or if I have a gun, I can shoot it. If I shoot it with a Strand gun, it detonates and it ties people up and like they don't do damage, and they're stuck there for a few seconds.
They just get CC'd.
Yeah. And so I love what that's done for the game. And I hope they start to add to the other subclasses to make them more like that. They do kind of have stuff like that, abilities close to it, but this is the first one where it's really, it allows you to create opportunities and synergies for your teammates by doing this stuff. Before it was just you drop an orb of power and they pick, your teammate can pick it up and that's what you get. But now they have the tangles, and I just love what that does for the gameplay.
Is that your primary class now, or?
For me, that's the one I run the most.
Wow.
Just because, well, first off, I love the grapple because it makes me so much more mobile.
Yeah.
And it, of course, there are certain cases, like maybe in a raid, not the best to go grappling into the boss,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that,
Pros and cons.
for most other things, like maybe the raid, I turn to my solar build and I use golden gun, or I can change the build, and they added a loadout system, which is amazing. But yeah, Strand I do all the time just because it makes me feel like I can really take advantage of the battleground and move around in ways that you can't normally.
Wow.
And so there's that first major update. I really love that, and I think that's a great addition. And then as far as Destiny 2 itself, I mean, I touched on that they're starting to get into what I feel is the meat and potatoes of it. Is there's a rumor, it's pretty much confirmed, but they're going to change the leveling system to be activity based now. So rather than before, it used to be RNG based, you'd get loot, and sometimes it wouldn't be the loot you need, it would be something else. Now it's going to be based on if you do an activity, you get more light levels, which is their leveling system. But if you do an activity, you get like +2, or if you do a certain one, you get +3. And I think that's a great way, especially what that'll do is that opens up play styles to whatever you want. You can play with any armor you want. You can play with any gun, and you don't have to worry about, well, this gun is only this certain level, so I can't use it. No, now it's, this gun is, I like this gun, let me switch it up. And it plays a lot more into their loadout system too, which I think is another great addition. So I feel like even though they're approaching their last DLC, or I don't know about last DLC, but it's a
like last expansion.
It's a conclusion to a arc right now. It's going to be called The Final Shape, and it's supposed to be like, it's this Lightfall DLC was the lead up to this final expansion. I don't know if they've announced if it's the final, but it's just like the penultimate of the story arc right now. And even though we're getting that, I think they have a great foundation for where they want to go next with the game. Because
Destiny 3,
I would be totally down. Because
10 years of D2, I mean,
the gameplay loop they're starting to set up is really nice.
how long has Destiny 2 been out?
Oh,
I think 2017.
2017. So Destiny 1 had a good run. Destiny 2's had a good run.
mm-hmm.
I mean, we were just talking about the tournament that they put on for World's First, the new Lightfall
Even
raid.
though
How many people were watching that?
There
Like
was
2 million or something live. 2 million live. Like that was crazy because I think there was like 800,000 or 900,000 just on Twitch alone. I don't remember what it got to. Maybe it wasn't that high, but then I was on YouTube and it had hundreds of thousands on there too. And it was just like, and then all the individual streamers were streaming it too, right? So like Shroud was on there with his horde of people watching. Like it was just amazing to see after all these years, people coming back to it. I love that they're willing to test the waters, and then they can drop a big, Destiny 3 and get a bunch of people back into the game for a little bit and continue to expand on some of these things. Maybe they do make it more of a social type game. They steer into more of this instanced group content, and keep going that way because they have some pretty amazing like raid encounter designs. The encounter designs in that game are really cool.
I mean, I'm in a clan, and I've been doing some raids with some of the people from there, and they're a lot of fun. I forgot how much fun they can be and how complex they are. They're like the one that, sadly, the Lightfall raid is a little underwhelming because it's mostly combat based. It's not really. It's mostly encounter based. A lot of the other raids, they have a mix of like, jumping type encounters, puzzles and stuff. This one was mainly combat. So you didn't really get to see it in this one, but like the King's Fall raid.
In the Lightfall raid?
Yeah.
You thought it was more of an encounter type style raid.
Definitely compared to the old ones.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I felt like some of them were mechanically difficult to achieve. I
Oh,
mean,
definitely, yeah. But I feel like there's jumping puzzles in ones, and the Lightfall one didn't really have any jumping
yeah.
puzzles. It was
Okay.
mainly you go and you have this encounter with enemies and
Move to the
you
next one.
do this puzzle while you're fighting. But yeah, like even King's Fall, which is from Destiny 1, is really complex and all the stuff you have to do, and it's a lot of fun once you get into it and you know what you have to do, and it feels so good when you defeat that encounter. I think so. Like I said, I think they have great groundwork. If they're going to do Destiny 3, or I don't even know. Like I said, I'm not sure if this is the last expansion or just the arc, the end of this arc.
Yeah, I feel like, well, when they did Destiny 2, they basically just ported in from Destiny 1, right?
Yeah.
Like, so there was no like people throwing their hands up that like all their efforts in Destiny 1 like went to waste, right? They
Yeah,
just
you
kind
got to
of,
carry over
yeah.
everything. Sadly, I was stupid in how I did it, and I didn't get to do that. But yeah,
Oh. Cuz I feel like
Honestly, all that Destiny, like all Destiny 2 was the official end of updates on the generation before that. Like they just stopped updating last gen and called it Destiny 2. It felt
interesting.
like.
Okay. Well, I feel like they could do something very similar to like Destiny 3 cuz all they do is throw that title on there
mm-hmm.
and they get a huge surge of players back into the game because it's obviously beloved, and they keep making these tweaks to the game because the content shift that already has happened between the introduction of the new class and then the introduction of like the reworking of all the skill trees and stuff like that. That was a massive update. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about this next piece that they might completely shift how core systems work. Like I can't think of a better time to drop, like to test that maybe and then come out with Destiny 3 and pump that and it to be its uh, own identity.
Well, yeah, and from the sounds of it, they're gonna drop that change to the core loot system or the light level maybe before even that final expansion. So they'll have plenty of time to test it, and then they'll get the huge influx of players for that last expansion there, and then
Yeah, I'm
boom.
really curious at how like super veteran, multiple 1,000-hour players view that change.
I think they'll view it nice. I mean, I hope.
Hmm.
Just because in my eyes, what I would imagine they would view it as is they finally don't have to worry about um, bringing up their favorite weapons and gear up to the current light level by using those upgrade modules. They can just focus on what their weapon is, upgrade that specific weapon, and not have to worry about, okay, well, this weapon's a little better. Do I have this certain material that I can to bring up my favorite weapon to that light level, but then it locks me out from using this other favorite weapon that I use for different encounters. So, in my
Yeah, but
opinion,
I wonder if veteran
yeah.
players have enough resources already
Oh,
to where this
probably.
shift to this new style is like, well, fuck, I can't, it's not as easy for me now. I have to actually do it this way.
But see, I think overall in my head, I think it's a net positive because the way the light level loot system was based is you could get so okay, here's an example. Say all of your armor is 1780 except for your boots, right? Your boots are 1796. The way the Destiny loot system works is you have to do a pinnacle mission to get the loot level to get a loot item that will be a higher level than what it you currently have. And even then, first off, you can't guarantee that you'll get boots, which you need, which are your lowest item. You might get gloves that are only one light larger, and that does nothing for your light level. So I think it was a really annoying in that case of where it's like, no, I just need boots. Like I need
Yeah,
a higher level of boots, not
I agree with
a
that.
gun, not a helmet. So
I also didn't like how it only gave you you know, a new light level X plus whatever you were already. So for example, you guys had a few more hours in playtime than me, and so you guys were always no until I made up that pure playtime and grinded out a few dungeons or whatever. I would have never been able to catch up to you guys just by looting stuff because I had to go through getting the same items and getting a little better, a little better, a little better. It was like a very linear experience, and you lose out on that. Holy shit! I just got this huge, amazing item.
Well, did you ever learn about the seasonal items, Billy?
Mm-mm.
Were you guys around for that? So this is a pretty
Seasonal?
cool one. Yeah, it's I'm
Is this a
kind
new
of
change?
I think it is. I think it was around when we were playing, but we didn't really look into it that much. And or maybe it wasn't optimized as good as it is now. I'm still kind of on the fence on it because I don't like that when a new season starts, you lose all your progress. How it works,
Oh, that kind of sucks.
it's your generic leveling system, but there's only like 10 levels. When the new season starts, you level up this artifact. It's called a seasonal artifact. And what that seasonal artifact is it has skill points you can assign to certain skills or mods or whatever you want to call them that only for that season, and they're unique. So for example, like this season, there's one that says like a void weapon. It really powers up void weapon. So it's like a void weapon kill can give heavy ammo to you and your squad, and then it also does this double damage. And so that the seasonal, I really like what they're doing with that because that'll hugely change how everybody plays, and it can shift the meta of the game by just saying, oh, this season it's actually sniper rifles are the best, and so forces people who don't usually use sniper rifles to then find a sniper rifle, get used to it, and then you can
I
feel
like
like you're
that.
in the meta.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I might re-download this. Might get into it.
Did I convince you yet, Kyle?
No.
Damn.
I was just kidding. I'm down to play anything. I just don't want to get hooked into something that's we only do for a little bit, and then I learned my
Amen.
lesson with you, Dylan. 2 games that we were gonna get into that you just gave up on us. So
2? I know one.
yeah,
Divinity Original Sin. What was the other one?
an Elden Ring co-op.
Oh, well, that one I wasn't really sold on anyways.
What a guy!
He played 15 minutes with us.
My PC is potato.
No, it's not. It worked great.
I had it on the lowest quality setting.
Ah.
If it was crossplay, I would have played with you guys more. But and then I have to unplug my computer to plug in my work from home setup, and it's a whole pain in the butt.
I see.
It's
It's quality of life.
But my console just sits there, and I press a button and it turns on, and I'm all set.
You sicken me. No, yeah, I mean we've been burned before, Kyle, but at least he's on this. This is how it's gonna go. We already memed this before the podcast, but I'm gonna call him up and be like, "Hey, let's play," and he's gonna be, "I got raids. You can't join. My friends don't think you're good enough," and I'm gonna be like, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna go sit in town then." And
Maybe I can join you after the raid.
Yeah.
And the raid takes 3
and
hours.
then you go to bed and
Yeah.
you don't want to. Yeah, exactly. I already know how that story ends. No,
Well, the
of
last
course not.
time we got into Destiny, it was the same thing. We got super into it, and then both you and Dylan fell off, and then I was left playing for like a couple months just by myself, and then I stopped, and then I tried to get back into it, and you guys weren't having it, and so I have this fear that if I try and get into it, I'm going to get into it really hard, but then you guys are both going to get bored of it.
Yeah, there's something about like at the end of the day, it's still shooter style combat, and that I go back and forth on. But the way that Dylan described some of the class changes to me, like offline, it actually kind of piqued my interest. I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Where I could just huck grenades and grapple around the map, and I have all these different toolkits that now I can use, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can actually have a custom playstyle instead of just holding left click and firing as many bullets as you can.
Well, so the funny thing is like the Diablo, how you mentioned there's the Hydra class, and they have a name for it, like the meta class.
Oh, for Hydra build for sorcerer.
Yeah. They have those names and stuff for Destiny now. So there's like the Trip Mine Trickster, and and it's like, but when you look them up and you get that build, it's like, well, I kind of get why they name it this, and it's fun to play.
Love it.
Like, well, I was to catch you up, Kyle. I was telling Billy, in Destiny, I finally got the ability to have one of the meta builds for solar, and I have the right exotic equipment. I have all the mods equipped. What it allows me to do is, pretty much, I throw a throwing knife, and as long as it kills somebody, I get the throwing knife back. And when I kill someone with my throwing knife, it fills up my grenade energy. So I pretty much just throw a grenade, throw my knife, throw a grenade, throw my knife, and I can do that forever as long as I'm performing and killing. I can do that combination forever, and it makes it so much fun.
Is the throwing knife an instant kill?
Yeah, and the way they have it, it's you just throw 3 or 4, spread out.
Oh shit! So you don't even have to be super accurate.
I mean, it won't
Be a
insta
little
kill like
sloppy.
strong enemies,
course, yeah.
or like shielded, but main ads, yeah,
That has been like a lot of fun.
it is. And then there's like I said, there's a bunch of builds for different classes. So like, I know only mainly the hunter ones, but like there's a Titan one where you're basically just shielding all the time, all your allies, and like it's a super support build, but it works amazing in raids. So I'd recommend we get into it. I'll be waiting, guys.
All right, I'm gonna download it tonight.
Okay.
And then I have to buy the newest.
Well, and I'm not excited about
Mention.
they aren't bundling it very well, so I'm just gonna start.
Well,
see how it goes.
like I told Billy,
If
you guys don't
buy
have
the newest one, it comes with all the old ones.
Not on Steam. Maybe it does on PlayStation, but like Lightfall, I would if I got Lightfall, I wouldn't get the Witch Queen.
Yeah,
maybe
we
it's
were
just
lucky.
because I
Sucks.
have everything except Lightfall. Maybe that's why.
Oh, you already have Witch
Yeah.
Queen.
Yeah, that's when I went back and played when
Yeah,
Witch Queen came
yeah.
out, and that's when I was trying to get you guys to play.
And I was telling this to Billy, Kyle. You wouldn't need to buy Lightfall to like play most of the content unless you wanted to get that Strand subclass, which I would recommend. But you can just test it to see if you still like it with what you already have.
I will
There's
like it if you
100%.
play with me. That is my.
I'll play with you.
I will play fucking.
And we're
Tetris.
gonna go legendary difficulty right off the bat.
Oh, shit, bring me along. Count
I
me in.
100% would not play it without buying all the newest shit. Do you know what kind of gamer I am?
Yeah,
if I
true.
know it's there, I can't hold off.
I know.
True.
You have bought more battle passes in Warzone than I ever did, which is absolutely wild to think about.
So
The
cool
amount of
thing,
money I spent on Destiny back when we were into it was just absurd.
So the cool thing, I'll tell you guys, with Lightfall, if you complete the campaign, if you guys buy Lightfall and we do the campaign on Legendary, if you finish the whole thing on Legendary, the hardest difficulty, it automatically bumps you guys up to 1760. The light cap right now is at 1800.
Oh shit! So you pretty much unlock the ability to do any raid.
Pretty much, it jumps you.
If you do
You'll
which
be
one?
close.
If you do which one?
If you do the Lightfall campaign on
fuck,
Legendary,
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
and
so I have to get Lightfall.
and you get
yeah.
to choose one of 2 exotics as a reward for your class.
Ooh. You said the Strand was a subclass, so I can have that on my Warlock?
Yeah. The thing is, I do agree with this as far as the complaints with Lightfall DLC. The campaign, the DLC itself is basically a long tutorial for the Strand subclass. And I don't think that's an exciting expansion myself.
How long does the expansion take to play through?
I've played through it twice.
In 3 hours?
No, it takes longer than that. Especially if we do Legendary, it's fucking hard.
Oh, I can imagine.
You can
Especially
probably.
I think I'm like 1200. I don't even remember 1300.
You'll level up fast.
Okay.
It took me probably, I would say 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours, maybe for both classes, just on normal.
So 6 hours each.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
that long. I mean, but again, that's on normal.
But
and
I would need you to carry me.
And that's you would be able to do it fine too, because the way the story works is it's adjusted to your level on normal, so it's
Even on legendary? No, I would go in legendary.
yeah. So legendary, But
I would
see,
need to be carried.
not necessarily, because legendary, it equalizes our power level. Power levels
But I
don't
would
matter.
still have to have you there, so
It
that
would
you would bring me up.
no.
I'm confused.
I said the wrong word with equalize. Power levels do not matter. Our power levels are the same in
So
legendary.
if I had power level 20, I could still complete the legendary mode. It's just going to be just as difficult.
Yep. You just all that matters is your weapons and your skill.
Okay.
Like for example, it'll put us. I don't know if this is the exact number, but it puts us both at like 1650 light. And then at that point, it just depends on what weapons we use and
But
how
you
good
just
we
said
are.
I don't need to get
No,
Lightfall.
it automatic.
But now I need to get Lightfall.
Well, if you guys were gonna, since Kyle said he was gonna,
All of his look at how that works. All of his recommendations to get back in involve this fucking expansion.
not necessarily.
Just if you want to have a good time.
You know, if you just want to have fun in the game, I guess. But
the only thing I want to close with is The Last of Us Part 1. I bought it on PC, played through it with my wife, a little couch streaming style experience for her. And she had a lot to say about like what the game did better and what the show did better. And it was kind of interesting to see what she preferred and what she didn't prefer. Actually, she liked a lot. Maybe it's because she watched the show first before ever having played the game. But she really appreciated Bill in the show much more than the game, because in the game he's a total sort of dick. She liked Ellie better in the show than she did in the game. And she also liked how the final sort of missions were built up and put together from a narrative perspective in the game versus the show, because she thought it was a little bit they had that last hurrah sort of under the hospital, sort of going through like the river system and one last little kind of puzzle style thing before going into the final. All right, that's it. Because in the show they kind of jump from her potentially almost getting, murdered and / raped, and then Joe goes right to them, hey, walking on a bridge, going into the hospital, flashbang, and then that's the end of the show. She liked a little bit of the longer lead up, so it was kind of interesting to see what she preferred and what she didn't prefer, and yeah, it was a fun game.
Most people that have played the game, I would think they agree that Bill was done better in the show than he was in the game.
yeah.
For the most part. But I think that's also a pretty natural reaction. If you've watched the show first, obviously that's going to control your perception of it. And that's why I think us that played the game like the game better, because obviously we played the game first.
Right.
So that makes sense to me for sure.
What did she think of the ending? Did she feel like it was just the same between both? Like the whole, they're walking and she's like, Joel, tell me the truth. And
yeah, she didn't have any. I mean, actually, both of us thought it was pretty much one for one, that whole thing. Even the dialogue was like the word, where it was basically word for word. Yeah, she didn't have any complaints. I like this scenery a lot better, I think, from the show. I thought the compound looked like more of a compound than in the game. It looked like a wrecked. I don't know. It was very weird. Like in the game, the way it ends, you never see that shot in the game. You kind of just show up at the front doorstep, and then they let you in. Tommy lets you in, whatever. But in the game, like that angle where you're kind of looking downhill in the community, it's the first time you ever really see it. And in the show, I think you see it a couple times, and so you kind of feel like, oh, we're back home or whatever. I don't know. It was good overall. She liked the game a lot, and she thought it was really fun to play through. I played on easy and still got my ass kicked a bunch of times, which is hilarious. Because I didn't feel like I didn't want a challenging game experience, especially with her watching, because that's not fun to just have to crawl. I hate stealth in games. I fucking hate it. I'm never a stealth guy, dude. And so putting it on easy and being able to just kind of run past a lot of shit and then have Ellie spawn in behind me because I'm so far ahead. It's so funny. You're like, is she with me? And then you just look behind you and she's like standing there and you're like, okay, you just spawned there. Sure. So anyway, Dylan, where can people find us?
They can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, pretty much any podcast listening platform you use, where we upload episodes usually on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also listen to our podcast, please. Please. I'm not going to beg here, but you started it.
Good. Well, you kind of did, but well, remember, with a good KD, you get the dub.
Bye, guys.
Bye.